In the studio with us, Jamail. He's also the author of Beyond the Green Zone, Dispatches from an Embedded Journalist in Occupied Iraq. His new book, The End of ICE, Bearing Witness and Finding Meaning in the Path of Climate Disruption. And tonight we'll be at the Q Center in Portland. Dar, apropos of that, how did your experience in Iraq inform your thinking about climate change?
Well, I had to learn how to figure out how to live something akin to a normal life amidst all of the knowledge of how much devastation had happened in Iraq, and a lot of it that I'd witnessed firsthand. And that meant dealing with trauma and PTSD. And I think now with the climate crisis, with the political crisis, with the economic crisis, with the overpopulation crisis, overconsumption, we are besieged daily. Open up your browser and you're traumatized. So how are each one of us going to deal with that? In working on this book and reporting on the climate now for almost 10 years, I've had to kind of pull out some of those old tools that I learned dealing with the trauma from Iraq with this. And I think all of us needs to learn how to do that. And that means taking a news fast, even if it's one day a week, spending a lot more time outside, remembering why we're doing what we do, because everything's so overwhelming and it's so easy to think, well, if I'm attached to the results of my actions, then I'm probably not going to get out of bed in the morning. And so I've had to learn to find a new motivation to do the work that I do.
I've had people call into the program and just kind of go off on, we all need to drive electric cars and we all need to eat vegan. And, it's something I do. And Louise and I do. And one of our kids too, and my response is very often, yeah, that's all good, but if everybody in the United States tomorrow started driving electric cars and eating vegan, we'd still have this crisis. That we might shave a little bit off the edges, but we'd still have this crisis. There is virtually nothing that any of us can do at the level of an individual that is going to have a macro effect. It's only going to be a micro effect, a relatively local effect, or it's going to diminish this much larger train that we're all riding on. That we have to be doing things at the level of policy, and that's where I look at Greta Thunberg, this little 16-year-old now. I think she is, or maybe she's 14, whatever. She might even be younger than that, who started out this thing, a year or two ago of, I'm not going to go to school on Fridays, and just sitting there in, is it Denmark? I forget which country, Sweden, wherever she's from, Sweden, yeah. And she gave this speech over the weekend where she said, I have talked with a number of politicians who have told me that panic is not useful and that I am promoting panic. And she said, but when your house is on fire, it's entirely appropriate to feel panic. And it doesn't have to paralyze you, but you do need to act fast or you're gonna die. And are we there?
The house is on fire, without a doubt. I mean, in all the topics that I just mentioned. I mean, we are in a planetary crisis. When we look at how fast everything's ramping up, how fast we're losing species, how fast we're losing our ability to feed ourselves, our house is absolutely on fire. I couldn't agree with her more. I personally don't think panic is probably the best approach. I think we need to find a deeper resolve in ourselves to figure out, okay, what is the way I feel drawn to try to have the most impact for good? And I've had to learn how to do that in a way where I'm unattached to results, and then realize that I have a moral obligation, no matter what, every day to get up and figure out what's the best way I can serve the planet today, and then do my best along those lines. And then that, to me, is a very sustainable way of doing this, because it's so overwhelming. If I look at the big picture for too long on any topic on any given day, I am completely overwhelmed, and I know that I'm not alone on that. So I think we all need to find a very deep, clear resolve. And for me, I've gotten that from going out and spending time on the planet and getting quiet and really listening and seeing what comes up. And my most recent example of that was, that's how I got the idea for this book. And then now I'm getting ready to do it again to figure out what to do next. And I think each person, we're going to have the most impact we can have if we come at it in that way, to kind of open ourselves up in a way where really, okay, how's the planet going to use me to try to help itself today?
The way that I've been pursuing this is to ask the question, who are the politicians that I can promote or support or encourage who might do something about this? Is that a reasonable first step?
I think that is a fabulous thing, and you are intensely well positioned to do that. And I think, like you mentioned earlier, if we were going to really shave some of the edges off of this crisis, only through government policy, massive radical changes would that happen.